Your job is just an income stream. You are in a financial relationship with your employer. You exchange labor and intellect for cash and benefits. Don't make the relationship more than what it is. They for sure will not. Whew, a word. And that's by Ducia Clark, and that was a tweet that she tweeted, I believe, last week. Hey, a word. I think some people just need to replay this opening tweet again and again and again, because I say it all the time. The relationship between employer and employee is transactional, and I feel like a lot of people, especially when I read some of the dilemmas, a lot of people put emotion where there is no place for emotion in the workplace, and I understand why. Obviously, you spend a lot of time at work, you build expectation, but the reality is if you start looking at the employer-employee relationship as transactional, then you're less likely to expect anything. And you then start to change your focus to look more strategic. And then you become more strategic in your approach to work and how you navigate, and also how you interact with your managers and colleagues alike. Hey guys. Hey. Hey, hey, hey. Can you see me? No, you can't. Can you see me? No, you can't. Okay, where do we start? Hello, hi. Where do we start? Okay, we start with hello and welcome, obviously, because we have to mind our manners. Hope you're all doing well. I'm actually recording this later than I usually would, just because. Go on. You know it. I released my limited edition apparel at the Toy Talks Affirmation Collection on Saturday, the 1st of August. And to be honest with you, I'm just so grateful. I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so tired. I'm so elated. I've got so many emotions, but I am grateful and I feel gratitude for how successful it was. People literally, as soon as the apparel went live, orders started coming in at 10:02, and the apparel went live at 10 a.m. on toytalks.com website. And to be honest, the feedback has been amazing. You guys have really enjoyed the user experience of the website and really found it really easy to navigate the website, which has been amazing. The feedback has been absolutely fantastic. And on another note, I have an announcement to make. It has obviously been 72 hours since the launch of the apparel, and I have completely sold out. I have no more affirmation collection apparel. It is sold out, and I'm so grateful to God to even be in this situation, and I'm so humbled. I entered this apparel collection off the back of last year, and I shared this on my social media, but I can share it again for those of you who don't know. I walked into Zara. Now Zara is where I shop for like workwear and everyday life wear. Now we all know that some of the Zara sizing is made for skinny white girls with no bums. It's not made for curvaceous, voluptuous and full-bodied women like us, okay? Anywho, I love printed t-shirts. I love printed tops. I love all of that stuff. And even more so because I've put on weight. I find that like loose fitted t-shirts with a nice print is always really nice. And I remember in Zara, it was always white women on the tops. So on the printed t-shirts, it's always white women. And I even draw the line at wearing a t-shirt with Madonna on it, to be quite honest, because Madonna is so problematic. And I just thought to myself, hang on, let me get this right. All these printed tees and jumpers or anything in print has got white women on it. And they're expecting black women to buy this stuff and wear it. But when was the last time you saw a white woman wearing any type of printed top with black women on it? Now, even if the option was there, I personally don't think some white women would wear it anyway. That's just my opinion. But in any case, there is not an option. It's almost like it's the white way is the right way. Do you catch that? Because I understand that Zara is a European brand. I can't even bother to find out where they originated from, one of their colonizing countries, I don't know. And it was just annoying to me. And I thought to myself, rather than complain, I went on Snapchat and I did have a bit of a rant, but rather than complain and just wallow in, the upset of constantly being confronted with the systematic and endemic racism that rules this country, I decided that I would create what I want to see, and that gave birth to the apparel collection. The affirmations, some of these affirmations are actually on my vision board. One of the affirmations is "You can't put black women in the corner." And it's actually a podcast title of mine, and it's actually the highest downloaded podcast episode. And I thought, you know what? It's so powerful, that affirmation, and it needs to go on the top. So I literally created the whole collection myself, designed it with a digital guy. There were so many redos of it until I was happy with the final product. So then to be able to now offer it to black women and anybody who wishes to purchase it, of course, but it's for black women, to black women, about black women, because that's what the platform is about. So every extension of the Toy Talks platform, apparel, masterclasses, is for black women. So to be able to then release an apparel collection and know that I've created this apparel because I wanted to see it, to be able to now see it on my fellow black sisters, fellow black queens, is going to be absolutely amazing. And I'm not going to sit here and make it sound easy, because it really is not easy. From issues with finding good printers, even finding a good digital person has been difficult, and obviously trusting people with your vision as it manifests. And everything I have learned through the journey of creating to delivering this apparel has really, really given me an education in terms of how production works, understanding supply chain. I actually took a short course on supply chain as well, because I was like, you know what, if something happened and this company where I source all my stuff from goes bust, I need to be able to infiltrate their supply chain to still get what I want. So even from that perspective, it was really, really interesting. And off the back of the apparel, I just wanted to share something with you before we get into the meat of this episode. I reached out to a few influencers in relation to the apparel. And the reason I've done that is because there were certain influencers I could associate with the Toy Talks platform. And if you want to talk about marketing and creating awareness for the apparel and the platform, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to kind of reach out. And one of the things on my vision board is to take more risks. And it is also the risk of putting yourself out there and getting a rejection. And it's different when you're applying for a job, you know that comes with the territory. But when you're now venturing into another realm, it's almost like your pride and your ego is more at play, I felt, in this situation anyway. And nobody that I sent a message to came back to me. But one of my friends posted a picture in one of the apparels, and I reposted it on my social media handle. And then suddenly I've got a response from somebody. And I thought to myself, do you know what? My motto is nobody owes you anything. No one owes you anything. And it has guided me throughout my whole career, my whole life. But equally, I don't like performative support either. I'm not down with that. And I felt like this particular person, it was like in school when something becomes cool when one of the cool kids wears it or one of the cool kids does it. And I definitely felt that way. And my thing is about being real and being your authentic self. And to me, that wasn't real. So I don't think, I will send out anything to that particular person. But equally, like I said, nobody owes you anything. But when you stand for something, you should stand comfortable in your principles. My whole entire life, I've always been underestimated. And when I'd say in my teens, it used to bother me a lot, because I used to feel like in order for me to be good at something, people had to believe in me. And I soon learned that it's about self-belief and what you believe about yourself. I always say, I am whoever I say I am, because no one's going to tell me who I am or what I should be. I have to develop enough self-awareness to walk in my truth and my purpose and know what that truth and purpose is. So being underestimated has been a way of life for me. And in my adult years, and I say adult from early 20s onwards, I would say that the underestimating of me or the underestimation of me and what I can do, what are, generally my aspirations has been one of my main motivators. If you want to see me spring to action, underestimate me. I will move mountains to make whatever it is I desire come true. And me and my partner call it the Michael Jordan effect. Michael Jordan, I did an episode about his documentary on Netflix, which I again will just urge everyone to have a watch. It's absolutely fantastic. But Michael Jordan and I are very, very similar in personality, the way he processes certain things. And I remember in a particular episode whereby he had been beaten in a basketball match, and he turned round and basically said that the guy who had basically beat him and challenged him a lot on court then said to him in the locker room, well done, that was a good game. And he found it quite patronizing. So for him, that was his motivation, because in that moment, in that exchange, he felt like this person was gloating and underestimating the full greatness of his ability. And then when they had a rematch, he smashed him on the basketball court. And that is me. That's how I operate. And then imagine in university being told that you're dyslexic, people on your course not even taking you seriously, and people underestimating your ability to actually finish the law degree, to finish law school. And then not only do I finish, I was the only African woman to pass in my year at that particular time, and I was one of 6 women that stayed on the course. In law school, that course, there was over 200 people. By the end of it, there was less than 20. So for me, when I put myself out there and people underestimate me, rather than internalize it or see it as a rejection, I see it as a motivation. And I can't wait for those of you who have been able to purchase the apparel, receive your items, wear it, repost it, at me, tag me, hashtag, and be able to see it, because I feel like representation is so important. Because we are underrepresented, sometimes we're not often seen. They're happy to have their slavery statues up and down as we're walking past it. They're happy for us to see that. On top of it, they want us to wear t-shirts with them on it, with white people on it. They want us to be wearing them t-shirts, but there's nothing that represents us. And it's high time, I think, that when you want to see something, if you're able to create it, then you make those steps to create it. I've always been a solution-based person. When I identify a problem, I try and find a solution. And in creating this apparel, it's now representing what personally I want to see. And I think a lot of us as Black women want to see. We want to see more of ourselves. And that's why I came up with the hashtag Black Created, Black Owned, because I think people underestimate the creativity of Black people, and we create a lot. What happens is it gets appropriated by white people who know the value of what we create, but rather than give us the value of it or acknowledge it, they rip it off, they copy it, and they appropriate it. Kim Kardashian, Kylie Jenner, and Khloe Kardashian. I mean, let's really be real. Like, what was she calling them? Boxer braids. I mean, come on, they're cornrows. Like, do you know what I mean? Everything that we have that represents our greatness. And I think it reinforces the fact of what our greatness is, or how great it is. And I think we need to start taking time to acknowledge that not only are we great, but they want what we have. They don't want us to have it or realize how great what we have is. So unless we are now willing to use our voices and our ability to create and own everything. And when I talk about owning everything, it's not the performative ownership like Nick Cannon. We spoke about that before. That's performative. He was performing for people who owned what he done. People owned Wilding Out, and he was performing only to not even own it. Like, that's crazy. And we spoke about that. I'm not going to repeat it. But with everything Toy Talks related, I own everything. The intellectual property, the trademark, everything I own. Because I feel like if we're going to make sacrifices to create awareness and ensure representation, why should we then downplay the greatness of what that is by not fully owning it in its entirety? And I think you guys, when I talk about stuff like this, everything you create, and I spoke about it before in the workplace, if you're creating templates and stuff, You are creating it. That is Black created. Now, how are we going to go about owning those things? Right. Like I said before in a previous episode, I'm going to create a folder of all the things I've created, and I'm going to own all of it by taking all the logos off and making sure that I create a lever arch folder for me, for myself, that wherever I go, I'm able to now rely on all these templates I've created so I don't have to start again. And why should we have to start again when our ancestors they were sacrificed so that we can be able to come here and make something of ourselves? Our ancestors were enslaved. Our ancestors had unspeakable things done to them. And we talk about how we have been able to utilize certain opportunities that are before us. It's by respecting what we create, by owning it. And that ownership pays homage to our ancestors who made the sacrifice for us to be able to be here now. That is how I process Black created, Black owned. High shoulders, high hopes. A friend of mine, we were talking last week and we were having a conversation, and we got onto the subject of the ability for Black women to say no, because our no is now made into a weapon of aggression. Our no is not understood as just a simple no. It is now turned into disrespect. Our no is seen, as I've said before, aggressive. Our no is misunderstood. But when a white person says no, their no means no. So this was off the back of a couple of messages I received where various people had reached out to me and asked me for the details of my printers, asked me for where I source my apparel, and asked me various business intelligence that, to be quite honest, I actually found downright disrespectful. Now, I'm all for sharing, and I did speak about this again on my Instagram, but I want to give a bit more context because, you know, with Instagram, you can't do Instagram lives for too long. So I want to expand, and then I want to go into some other stuff as well, which is more pertinent to the title of this episode. And my thing was this: you have to protect your business intelligence. You know, the stuff that you've done to break your back to be able to have a business. In your employment contracts, they have business secrets, and they coin it rather call it business secrets, they call it confidentiality clause. Because when you're working for certain organizations, there's business intelligence that you acquire, and they need to make sure that, number one, you're not going to replicate it. Number two, you're not going to sell it. And number three, you're not going to go to a competitor and give them their business intelligence. Now, in practice, whether, you know, they can really stop you from doing that is one thing. But the premise of what they're, a confidentiality clause is to protect their business intelligence. So what made me really angry is when I was asked those questions, I was expected to give people the answer, because you wouldn't have asked me if you didn't think you were going to get the answer. And it's not about not wanting to share, because I use every platform that is a branch of the Toya Talks platform to share and educate, especially Black women. I do it all the time. It is my life's purpose. I'm walking in my purpose. But there comes a point where you also have to create boundaries. And if somebody had asked me about my business strategy, so for instance, if somebody had said to me, Toya, I really want to know where you source your material from or your apparel from, because I'm coming out with my own apparel line. However, rather than tell me where you get it from, I'm actually more interested about the decision you made in sourcing. Like, what was your strategy with finding a business that could source your, apparel? What material did you use? Those questions I don't have an issue with, because I'm happy to give you my formula so that you can go off and make a decision. What I'm not going to do is give you my business intelligence, which is basically what underpins and what holds up my business. I'm not prepared to do it. I mean, why is it that it's expected that a Black woman will go break her back and then you can stand on her shoulders and you don't have to do the work? You just think you could just cream off. Why? I think it's disrespectful, and I think it's basically saying, I'm happy for you to do the hard work, just give me the answer when you're done. And I'm not here for it. if someone had asked me the question, Toya, what type of print did you use? Why did you decide to use that print? And in terms of finding printers, what were the top 4 or 5 things that swayed your decision in choosing the printer that you did? Now, those things, I have no issue, because effectively, I'm giving you my reasoning and the strategy behind what I'm doing. Again, it will formulate and help you to formulate your own decision. Now, for me, it's twofold. I remember a couple of years ago, I used to wear wigs all the time. I still sometimes wear wigs, but few and far between now. And I remember I used to get messages all the time, and people was like, where'd you get your wig? Where'd you get your wig? And there was this one wig company that I really liked. And again, I was asked the question. So I told people where I got my wig from. And about a month or 2 later, I get a message from one of the people who had asked me where I got my wig from. And she decided to tell me her experience of this wig company and that the wig was no good, etc., etc. And I remember pausing and thinking to myself, am I supposed to apologise for giving somebody this information that they asked for, and they've now relied on that information? It hasn't turned out well for them. Are they expecting me to give them a refund? This wig company has nothing to do with me. I was just sharing. And I think I learnt my lesson from that situation, that people don't necessarily want the answer. They just want an easy way out. And you have to make people more responsible for their decisions by giving them the strategy, and then be hands off and let them make that decision. That to me is worth its weight in gold. The strategy is worth its weight in gold. You know that saying, you can give a man a fish and he'll feed his family for a day, but teach him how to fish and he'll feed his family for a lifetime. It's the same thing. If I just give you the answer, you now make me responsible for whatever falls out of it. But if I tell you the strategy and the things to think about, kind of where and how I did my research and how I made a decision, that should then be seen as, to me, carrying more weight, because that would enable you to make a more informed decision, but a decision you shall make. And, I spoke to my friend and I says, I don't understand this. Like, am I being harsh? And she said to me, you know what? Black women are always expected to say yes. And the no is almost seen as offensive, and it's almost seen as aggressive in its nature, when no just means no. And I think what people need to understand is, as Black women, we are allowed to say no in the same way that a white person can say no. And there doesn't need to be any recourse. It should just be a no. And then it's that conversation that we had snowballed into discussing what Black women carry. And I feel like when I look at my shoulders in the mirror, they're quite stiff, because I carry everything on my shoulders, as I'm sure many of us Black women do. And I think one of the things that are quite heavy on my shoulders is the fact that as Black women, we carry Black men, be it in the office, be it in everyday life. And I want to concentrate specifically in the office. Now, I've worked in organisations where I'm more likely to see Black men than I am to see Black women. And if I see Black women, we're in the minority. The Black men may be 3, but they'd still be in the majority. And I definitely am guilty of having a superhero complex. And I realise that now, having done a lot of reflection over the course of my career, whereby I've worked in organisations before, and if I see an injustice done to a Black man, I'm all but ready to go and defend him. Or if I'm on a train and I see that a Black man is having an argument, and if it's with like a white person's being disrespectful or derogatory, or, I'm there, like, excuse me, don't talk to him like that. I'm that person. And I feel like it's not reciprocated. And then we are called angry. But we're always being exposed or left exposed. And I think as Black women, we need to start now taking some time to really process and think about how much we are going to carry on our shoulders. We carry periods and menstrual cycles, as they're called. We carry period pains. We carry children. We carry our own trauma of being Black women in a society where they tell us that we're no good, we're not good enough. We're told that in the pecking order, we are at the bottom. So we're carrying all of that, and then we're constantly trying to unpack like that, whilst also trying to find ourselves and then also being successful in the world of work. We have enough to carry. My question is, when is carrying going to be enough? Because the expectation gets higher and higher. I've never been in an organisation whereby something has happened, or I've been discriminated against, or been treated as less of a human, and a black man has defended me. Or being on the train. I remember this time I was on the train, and you know, when it comes to white South Africans, that is a whole nother episode, because we need to talk about white South African people who effectively call themselves African and then treat African South Africans like trash, or treat African people like crap, or African women, because my interactions with South African guys and women, to be honest, it's unbelievable. And then they'll try and tell me they're an ethnic minority. It's a bit too much, to be honest, but I digress. So I remember I was on the DLR, and there were these two South Africans. I knew they were South African because of their accents, and they were white, man and a woman. And this man basically was holding onto the pole, you know, so he doesn't fall, but it was over my head. And every time I moved, his hand moved. Now, it was a packed train at the end of the day. But my thing is, if I know that I've accidentally knocked into someone, I know it's an accident, I'll just apologise. But obviously, being a man and being a white man, he's not going to apologise for black women. Are you joking? Nah. But it got to a point where this man knocked my head. My wig, the wig comb, I heard it, dong, I heard it there. I said, no, enough has to be enough. I said, excuse me, you've just hit my head. He goes, so it's a packed train. This is what happens during rush hour. Have you ever travelled in rush hour before? I says, excuse me, is everything okay with you? First of all, you're not going to talk to me like that. Secondly, I don't need to smell what you had for breakfast. And thirdly, the next time you hit me like that, me too, I'll do the same to you and call it an accident. If it's an accident, then there's no problem with you to apologise. But being aggressive is not how to solve this situation, and it doesn't have to be a situation. But when every time you're raising your voice and all the saliva in your mouth is going everywhere, it becomes a problem. The way this man looked at me, he started going red. So in my head, I'm like, okay, so it could go left. Then his girlfriend tried to start talking. I said, you will pipe down. You are going to pipe down. And there were two black men, one on my left and one to my far right. And they both saw what happened. And they just looked at me. They had this like half a smile, like a crest, half a smile, and they put their head down. I was effectively being attacked by two people, one of which was a man. In my head, I would have expected one of those men to say something. I wanted them to say something. I needed them to say something. Even if it was just, excuse me, you need to calm down, to the guy. Even if it was just that. And I remember getting off that train feeling so disappointed, because I looked like I was the problem. Do you understand? And I needed an ally in one of my black kings. And I'm not saying, oh, you must only, they owe it to me. That's not what I'm saying, because remember, I've said no one owes you anything. But I know that if the situation was reverse and I was there and I witnessed it, I know I would say something, because that is just how I am. And I know you can't expect people to be like you. I understand that. But I am so used to a black man not defending me in any situation. So that example I give is very minor. Now, I remember having the conversation with my little brother, and I asked him, if you was in that situation, what would you do? He goes, do you know what's this? I'd probably react the same. I said, but why? He says, because as a black man, we're seen as more aggressive. Therefore, if I say something, he can interpret that as being quite threatening. I said, but then if that's how you feel as a man, how do you think I feel as a woman? And he goes, I get that, but unless a man actually physically does something to you, unless that white man physically does something, in that case, I would I would intervene if I was there, or if I saw a woman in that situation. I would expect one of those black men to step in. I was like, yeah, but why can't you step in before it gets to that point? And he goes, for the simple fact that stepping in where I may see it as defending a fellow black woman, this white man will see it as a threat. So it's the lesser of two evils. And I was so interested to hear how my brother processed it. I asked one of my friends, and he actually said something similar, one of my friends. And I said to my brother, I don't go around expecting black men to come to my defense. That's not what it is. But I'm wondering if there's an expectation from black men that a black woman will cover them in, and when black women cover them, my question is, at which point, how far does things have to go before a black man covers a black woman? And my brother said, it's given me food for thought, but I definitely think that you have to consider the dynamic between black men and black women and how they are understood and how they are treated in society. And I'm definitely going to get a black man who I respect on the podcast, because I think it's definitely a conversation piece, and I think it's definitely something that I feel like we need to explore a bit more, because obviously I have one view as a black woman, don't I? And I think it'll be interesting to have a black man on this podcast, which I'm planning to do, by the way, where we can explore things like this a bit more. Now, as black women, I can only talk from my perspective, right? And hopefully you guys are able to identify, or this maybe can open up a dialogue of conversation. I'm going to put something out there. My experience of black men coming to the black woman's defense is that a black man is more likely to come to the defense of a white woman than a black woman. And I think that speaks to white fragility, in that white women are seen as fragile. Their tear ducts are like taps. So as soon as they start crying every 5 seconds, and I feel like society has been conditioned to look at the white woman as like Snow White, angelic, harmless, all of this. It's only now we've started seeing recordings of Karen in action that we're realizing, actually, well, I say we, but we already know that others are realizing that white women are just performative in their fragility, and their white fragility is assumed like a mask at any given situation. And it's sad that I have to admit that, but it's true, because I have also been on the train and witnessed black men defending white women against other white men. Does that make sense? I've never, ever, on a public transport or a public setting like a workplace, witnessed a black man defending a black woman. I've never seen it. Ever. I'm not saying it never happened. I'm just saying that has not been my experience. That has not been my witness. I haven't witnessed that. I feel like white men have a proximity to whiteness through their ability to identify with white men and have common ground about sports, football, rugby, cricket. And then I think some black men forget that they're black men, and they are deceived by their common ground with a white man, and therefore they think that gives them a pass and a proximity to whiteness. But what they need to know, some of these black men that are quite deluded in their pursuit of acceptance by a white man, is that a white man will always see a black man as a black man. He will see him as a black man before he sees him by the name in which he has been blessed with. Do you understand? That is my opinion. Go play it to a black man. And if there is a black man out there that, doesn't agree with me, cool, I'm sure there's going to be many that don't agree. But I'm not here for the approval of a black man. I'm here to talk about and open a conversation and a dialogue, because my shoulders are so stiff, because I'm carrying a lot. And I think it's part of, number one, yes, I definitely have a superhero complex that I'm working through, and I know where it comes from, because therapy has really opened my eyes. But secondly, I feel that because I'm really close to black men in my family. I have more men in my family than women. Therefore, I'm around black men all the time. I only have brothers, my cousins. And I think that with the women in my family, we are used to being protected by the men. But I know that it's only in my home. I know when I go out there, I'm for myself. Like I know I'm out there in the world by myself, if that makes sense. Because I could be in a precarious situation, and I don't think I have. I think I've seen stuff on social media where a black woman was being targeted by a Karen, and a black man steps up. And I'm hoping that with the resurgence of Black Lives Matter, there are those black men who wouldn't necessarily kind of come to the defense of a black woman, are now actually processing certain things and thinking, right, we need to protect black women at all costs, because I definitely think it's now time for us to have a balance of protection. And that balance of protection has to be that in the same way, strength and breath that we protect black men, we excuse and defend them, we need the same. And it cannot be expected of black women to always rise to the defense and always be that superhero, because there comes a point where enough has to be enough. So a decision that I've made is I will always stand up for what is right, because that is just an intrinsic part of my personality. You know, I'm a Libran. It's about justice, fairness, loyalty, and respect. But if there is something that I witness and I know that it's like, you know, if it was like a teenager, a young black teenage boy, obviously I'm going to defend. And that's just my natural instinct as a sister. But if I know it's, you know, a mature black man and I witness something, I think I'm going to have to think about, before I step up or defend and go to my default setting, I'm going to actually take a step back and think about whether that is my fight. And whilst I think that I will always defend the black man, I think I have to also give black men the opportunity to defend themselves, because I think black men have a lot more of a pass than black women do, and it's really, really easy to label black women angry. And some of the stereotypes that have been pushed by black men against black women, and I'm starting to get a bit agitated at the fact that black men don't seem to understand that if for instance, as a black man, your preference is a white woman, you need to educate that white woman that just because she is your preference doesn't mean you dislike black women. That's just a preference. I feel like there's some white women that use that as a pass to target, disrespect black women because they're with a black man. And effectively it's like saying, I'm not racist because my best friend's black. It's that. And I feel like there needs to be more black men that hold white women to account, because there's been many situations, many conversations, and many things that I've witnessed where I remember when I was a lot younger and we went to this club. Oh my God, I used to go clubbing all the time. I don't even know the name of this club, and I'm sure it doesn't exist anymore. And there was this, there were these people standing at the bar, and I went to the bar to get a drink, and I was standing next to this black man, and he said, "Oh, you're right." I was like, "Yeah, I'm cool, thank you." Ordering my drink, mind my business. I turned to my left, there's a white woman. The way this white woman was looking at me, I swear to God, I really, really felt like the way she was watching me, that it was burning into my skin, and I couldn't understand it. I was like, what have I done to this woman? I quickly realised she was with the black man, and I don't know whether she felt threatened. I don't know what it was. And he looked at her and started giggling, and then she called me an effing bitch. And I turned to him and I says, you better get her together before I become the fucking bitch that she desires me to be. And the girl started rearing up her chest. I was very calm. And I turned to her and I said, you don't want it. And one thing with me, and I think even till now, is I really do take time, because once I lose my temper, it's on. And it's one of them things where I'm swinging and winning. So she don't want it. When my mum has always said, if I'm calm in them situations, that person better run. Because once that knot is off my head, I'm so sorry. We're you know what? One of us ain't now gonna make it. One of us is gonna have to go to the hospital for emergency surgery. So it's better that I don't even get into them situations. Do you understand? And I've got a good grip of my temper. But in that particular situation, it's almost like I was conscious of the fact that I would have been legitimate to be angry, but then I would have hit the stereotype, and I couldn't trust that black man will have my back, or in that situation, that's his woman, so he or put her in her place, and in that way, he's also having my back. I couldn't trust that, so I knew I was in this on my own. And I was, even at that age, I think I became very, very aware of the fact that my blackness as a black woman carries a lot and is always perceived negative. So even if I am upset, I'm angry. Even if irritated, I'm angry. Even if I'm concerned, I'm angry. Any tone that is negative is perceived as anger. Anyway, I digress. And then he just moved her. But my thing was, at the point in which she called me a fucking bitch, was it the fact that it was just jealousy and it wasn't about my race? Or was it the fact that I was a black fucking bitch? I think it was the latter. I do think it's and I find that there are several white women that will have a child for a black man, call their child the N-word, and still think that they're allowed to be discriminatory because they're with a black man. And there are black men out there that don't hold these white women to account in understanding that black women are not their enemy, that white woman is a choice for the black man, but it's not us and them. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? But again, it's about black men defending black women. And when we say defend, it's not necessarily coming out beating their chest. Oh, we're here to fight. No, it's not even that. Sometimes it's just educating those white people that you choose to have a very close proximity with. It's about understanding that just because a white man accepts you doesn't mean they accept all black people. And I think there needs to be a level of education that some black men need to do. And I think there needs to be a level of understanding and an openness to understand and a willingness to accept that there are white people that genuinely are just racist, and you're working with them and they're laughing and they're having pints of beer with you. But let me tell you something, when they're paying songs that have the N-word in it, they're singing them words because they've always desired to say it, and they think that now they have this proximity to this black man, it gives them the pass to use the N-word and any racially discriminatory word, and also gives them the pass to disrespect black women. When a white man seemingly accepts you, dear black king, but then discriminates against black women or ridicules black women because we're black women, or ridicules other black people, they've never really accepted you. They've just given you a pass. But when they disrespect every other black person, they disrespect you too. And I think there are some black men out there that really need a re-education. And I think there's some black men out there that really need to understand that no matter how much they try, at the end of the day, if a white person doesn't like black people, but acts like you're the exception, you're a black person too, you'll never be the exception. I remember a few years ago, I was dating this guy, and I'm not going to use his name because I deny dating him because he was you know what, the architect of waste men, he would be the architect of a waste man. The full blueprint would be him. Anyway, he was maybe a year older than me, 2 years older than me, but he only had one black friend, all his other friends were white. Nothing wrong with that. I personally think that was a reflection of how he grew up. And he had this one friend called Yan. And I just remember with Yan, he just had there was this something about him, like quite uppity, quite arrogant. And I remember he had a sales job. I don't know what particular industry, but it was working in sales. At this time, I was working I can't even remember where I was. I can't remember. I remember having a good job because I remember I had money. But anyway, and we'd decided to go abroad because the guy I was dating isn't originally from London. He was actually from Brussels. And it was New Year's Eve, and we're all sat around this table. So the guy I used to date, I've never dated a white man anyway. Now my preference, I like black men, and that's just my preference, and I will not justify or explain it. And if you're a white person listening to this, yes, I like black men. Anyway, we're sitting on this table now, and we're gonna call my ex Michael, and we're all talking or whatever, and Yan's girlfriend, I can't remember what she must have said or whatever. I think she told a joke, that's it. She told a joke and no one really laughed. And Yan had been drinking a lot of alcohol. Now, this is one thing that white people do. Actually, there's many things they do really. But when they drink alcohol, they think that's a pass, when in fact, all that does is highlight their racial prejudice that they've been trying to suppress for a long time. and it comes out in their drunken state. That's why I sometimes I do kind of go to these drinks and I'll be drinking water, sparkling water with ice, and I'll just be watching them as they make an absolute tit of themselves, and the truth always comes out. Anyway, Yan had been drinking, and then Yan turned to me and he says, "Oh, Toya, sometimes you can just laugh to be polite." And I was like, "Okay, fine, but in not laughing, does it make me impolite?" And he goes, "Oh, you really think you're smart?" And I was like, "It's not about thinking I'm smart. Why are you saying it to me? Like, no one laughed. And even if no one laughed, what's the issue? You don't have to find it funny." And he goes, "Oh, you don't have to be so ghetto." I was like, "What?" And the whole time, Michael sat there and said nothing. A real bumberhole, a real pussy clerk be this. Michael sat there and did nothing. And he said, "Oh, at the end of the day, you just got attitude. And it's, when you're from the ghetto, this is how it is, isn't it? This is how it is. You're just ghetto." And I was about 23, 24. And Michael said nothing. His best friend Yan was basically discriminating against me because I'm a black woman. And then he went ahead to tell me that I'm uneducated and all of this, all in the guise of alcohol. No, that's what you've been itching to say all this time, and you're probably not even that drunk. This is just your excuse. And I got up and I walked out. And as I walked out, Michael was in hot pursuit. And I said, "You know what, Michael, just go back, leave me alone." And I remember ringing my dad, and I told my dad what happened, and my dad said, "Well, first of all, you know that you're not dating a man, because a real man will never allow another man to disrespect his woman. But secondly of all, when you are dating a black man who surrounds himself with white people, you've got to ask yourself, which black man holds him consciously accountable?" Deep what my late father said. Which black man holds him consciously accountable? At the time, I really didn't know the weight of what my dad had said. I hadn't really understood the weight of what my father had said. And I went back to the table, because I had to anyway, because we was in a different country. I got my stuff and I turned to Michael and said I wanted to go. And Yan wanted to try and apologize or whatever. And in my head, I'm like, "You're a racist prick. I don't need to talk to you. Like, I'm done." Like, my thing is, it's a strict liability offense, because I believe there are white people who are just racist and they're living in and amongst us, tolerating us. So when I see the head of racism when it comes out of you, that is who you are. It's a strict liability offense as far as I'm concerned. As a black woman who has lived, who has grown up in and amongst a multicultural society, you better understand I have my views, but I will never ever tolerate racism. I don't care what the reason is. It's not going to be accepted by me. I don't care if that's your best friend. In fact, I don't care if you two were born in the same hospital or in the same cot. I don't give a shit. Anyway, Michael then arranged for a cab to take us back to the hotel. And then I didn't say anything the whole cab journey. Then when we get to the hotel, I said to Michael, "You need to get another hotel room because you're not staying in this one." And he was like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Let me get this right. Your best friend calls me ghetto, racially discriminates against me in front of you. Forget the respect thing, but he's disrespecting you as a black man. And in that moment, you didn't defend me. And therefore, you didn't defend yourself. Because what was required is for you to defend our blackness, and you did nothing. But I think it's because you think he doesn't see race when it comes to you, but he sees race with everybody else. But don't you understand, when he disrespects black people, he disrespects you. And the pass that you think he gives you is the license that he feels that he has to now disrespect black people because his best friend is black. You are his token that gives him the right, and you're not even holding him accountable. You're using the excuse that he's drunk. No. And the relationship went downhill after that. And I think it was maybe 6 months to at least 6 to 9 months later, me and Michael, it didn't last. Because I also as well, in my estimation and regard, I just didn't look at him as anything. For me, it was just like, I just look at him like less of a man. And also as a black man, I felt like I expect black men to be kings. And I know I said you shouldn't have expectation, but I see black men as kings. And this one was acting like a shoe boy. In my language, we heard boy. He was acting like boy. I was just looking at him. When are you, as a black man, going to stop looking at yourself as a subservient to a white man? When are you going to stop looking for acceptance by a white man? When are you going to understand that in order to navigate the world of work, life, relationships, obviously we have to have proximity to all different people. But dear black man, you can never have any type of proximity to whiteness because you are not white. You are black. And if you think you have a level of any type of proximity, it is nothing less than delusion. Nothing less than. You shouldn't even want to have the proximity whereby you lose your identity just to be accepted, because you never will. Like I said earlier on in this episode, my shoulders are stiff and I need to relax my shoulders, and I need to start thinking about what fights are mine to be fought and what fights are the black man to fight. And whilst I will always do the right thing, and whilst I will aim to always do the right thing, and whilst I will always stand up for what I believe in, I'm not going to, and I don't think black women should continue to be used as an instrument of being a sacrificial lamb for the same kings that won't defend us, that won't rise for us, that won't stand for us, and won't speak to our defense, but instead seeks to distance themselves from us because they understand how problematic the stereotypes are that we carry on our shoulders. And rather than defend us by carrying some of those things on our shoulders, they allow the white man to continue to attempt to crush us. Our shoulders are high, our shoulders are tired, and our shoulders are stiff. We need to relax. As white women, our fight as black women is difficult enough without having to carry the fight of a black man who in turn won't do it for us. And what I'm trying to say is, when you find yourself in certain situations, I think one of the questions that one needs to ask themselves is this my fight? And I think we need to kind of remove the unique ability we have as black women to feel guilty or feel like it's our responsibility, when our responsibility has to be met with a level of balance, because the imbalance between black men and black women in society is much. Already as men and women, we have our own issues, but as a race, I just think we understand as black people what it is to be racially discriminated against, underrepresented, targeted, penalized, and yet we can't come together in situations where the black woman needs an ally in our own. It's very disappointing. I'm hoping, not only will things change, but I'm hoping that as black women, we become stronger in ourselves. And again, ask ourselves, is this our fight? And understand what fights are ours and what fights are theirs as black men, and what fights are collectively ours as well. Dear black queens, let us shine our eyes so that we can see bright. Let us shine our eyes, because I don't know about some of you, but I'm tired. I'm tired, and it isn't for the lack of iron. What it is constantly having to defend, protect black men, the same black men that often don't defend us. And remember, I'm saying it's not all black men, it's some, and it's in those critical situations in work environments, in everyday life, where we need black men to show up, because they're there already. But when we say show up, it's also step forward, that they don't. And we are not, I hope, asking black men to sacrifice. That's not what we're saying. But what we're saying is there is strength in number, and there is a respect that I think men garner in the workplace from other men, albeit fear, that often black women have to struggle quite hard to get. One of my friends used this analogy, and I'm going to use it here to kind of close off this segment. Black women are like the most beautiful trees. But even trees need to be watered. Trees need to be invested in, cared for, loved. And all those branches that come out of a tree, an extension of that tree, also need to be looked after. The reality is, in order to have a forest, all the trees have to come together. fundamentally, in order for a tree to survive, trees need to be taken care of and they need to be watered. I'm just going to leave that there. Those who have ears, let them hear. I need someone to help me understand. So basically, London has opened up, and it's as if the pandemic hasn't happened. Honestly, the way some people have just been moving and shaking down these aisles in Tesco's and Sainsbury's, people have been moving really wild. I was in Lidl the other day. The way this woman was coughing, she didn't even put her hands over her mouth, and the way I ducked, you would think that somebody was throwing something at me. I turned to the woman, I said, excuse me, on a normal day you wouldn't close your mouth. And she was like, oh, I can't find my mask. Wow, so you think that what I'm talking about is put your mask on rather than putting your hands over your mouth. And that is the level in which we're dealing with hygiene and possibly a second wave. And I've always said there'd be a second wave, but I think they opened up London and the UK in general too early. And that's why the second wave is literally it's fast approaching as opposed to coming in October when it gets a bit colder. But Boris is basically telling us to get fit. And he's telling us that we need to walk, we need to do more exercise, because the healthier you are, the more likely you are to kind of defend your immune system will be strong enough to defend against the coronavirus. Now, I don't know about you lot, but me personally, I can't take advice about the gym and health from a person, i.e. Boris Johnson, who is overweight and looks unkept. It's like taking financial advice from somebody who has no money, or taking any advice from somebody who seems to be a specialist in what they're talking about but doesn't specialise in their personal life. Boris Johnson looks like a hot mess on a good day. I personally don't take advice for people that don't comb their hair, because if you can't take pride in yourself, I don't see how you can take pride in others. That's how I look at it. This is the same Prime Minister that's basically telling us to get fit, but he's doing 50% off. His Chancellor of Exchequer is doing 50% off in the restaurants. So what I'm trying to ask you people is this. Boris says get fit. Then McDonald's, Hakkasan, the rest of them are doing 50% off. What is it really? Because he's clearly trying to push us to go to these restaurants, eat out, continue to build the economy. And the second half of it is he wants us to get fit. But he's exposing us by... let's be honest, he's pushing this herd immunity, and then we're about to approach a second wave. All I'm going to say is this. Let's do a lessons learned on a personal level. What did you learn from the lockdown? And let's put things into action. As soon as lockdown was lifted, I went straight to Costco and upgraded my card to a black card. I started buying certain things. I don't want no one to tell me I'm stockpiling. This is a way of life, do you understand? But we are going into a second lockdown, and I would like to urge my listeners to start preparing for it. Don't be caught last. Don't carry last, please. Yeah? I don't want to see you in the line going to get toilet roll, because these people, they will skip the bleach section, all the hygiene section, they'll skip it, even the seasoning section, and they'll go straight and get the toilet roll. And I'm just wondering, what are they using the toilet roll for in their house? Because I don't understand. We are in an era now which is unprecedented, because me personally, I'm watching the government literally act like cockroaches. No one knows what's happening. They're all over the place, scatter, scatter, scatter. And I think we're hearing less of how COVID is affecting Black and ethnic minorities, and more about how it's important to restart the economy. So the priority for the government is the economy. It is not us. So we have to safeguard ourselves. In any case, we should be looking after ourselves anyway, and not allowing our health and our future to be determined by a prime minister who looks like a basketball. God forgive me. Anyway, listen, I'm going to wrap it up there, because I have a lot of work to do this week in terms of dispatching the apparel for the customers that purchase from the Toya Talks website from the latest collection. So that's what I'm going to be doing this week. I'm really happy I was able to deliver a podcast episode, because I didn't think I'd be able to do it. And I did think maybe I should have taken the day off today so I could just concentrate on dispatching product. But I'm happy that I did this episode today, and I'm really happy that you guys have been able to tune in. I want to thank everyone for their support, as I do every episode, just because I know that people don't owe it to anyone to listen to their podcast or anything. So when you take the time out every week, every Tuesday, you're locked in listening to the podcast. I feel so grateful that you're connecting, and I'm so grateful as well, like the sharing. There's people that have reached out to me, then they're like, oh, a friend told us about it, or we saw somebody retweet it, or we saw someone put it on social media, and they love it. And I definitely think the success of this podcast and the success of the Toya Talks platform is going to come from sharing, and be it, the podcast and the platform being discussed in the right conversations in the right rooms. And all I am is a vessel. So I'm relying on you guys and your gratitude and your openness to share the podcast and the episode, and also tweet and repost as well. I love reading your messages. And obviously, like, if you listen to Toya Talks podcast on Apple Podcasts, rate and review it if you've had an opportunity to, or if you've caught up on all the episodes, because we're currently at 5 stars, which is amazing. And I like charting. I like the podcast charting. It shows that one is making a difference and one is being recognized by the charts, if you like. It's always nice. It's a nice feeling as well to know that I'm on the right track and you guys are enjoying the content. What was also really lovely as well is, you guys know I have masterclasses on the toyatalks.com website, and quite a few of you purchased some of those masterclasses on Black Pound Day, which is obviously the same day as the apparel launch. And the feedback has been absolutely fantastic. The CV masterclass has been really, really popular, and I'd say the interview masterclass as well. Actually, all of them have been really, really popular. I think the way the pandemic has changed the way employers employ and employees work has really come through on the masterclasses, and the learning outcomes. You guys have really benefited from using the learning outcomes, and therefore putting into practice everything you've learned from the separate masterclasses into everyday life. So we've got the CV masterclass. In the CV masterclass, I also at the end of it, you guys can email me and I can give you CV templates that I use personally as well. I discuss and teach you guys how to apply for public and private sector roles, applications, how to fill out those applications. I give you a suggestion. I actually do an application and talk through it on the CV masterclass. The interview skills is a really good one as well. We talk about the new way in which people are interviewing, so Zoom. I give you guys tips how to interview, how successful my interviews have been and why, things to avoid and things like that. We've got the mother-daughter masterclass where we talk about the often traumatic relationship between mother and daughter, especially in an African household, and in my case, Nigerian household, how that affects one's ability to interact with women, especially in the workplace, and interact and deal with authority. So I talk through a lot of those things and some of the challenges I've encountered as well. And lastly, we have the negotiation masterclass, and I really go in depth about negotiation in terms of negotiating a salary and a title change, the preparation required for a negotiation, and the psychology behind a negotiation, when to walk away, how to negotiate, how to actually understand a starting position of negotiation. I go into a lot of depth. And so those are the masterclasses that we have on the toyatalks.com website. And we earlier spoke about Black ownership, so it's only exclusively sold on the toyatalks.com website. And it's really good, useful tools, I think, that people are going to need. I mean, my siblings have accessed the masterclasses and have really enjoyed them and learned a lot from them. I will be adding to those masterclasses over the coming weeks, dealing with redundancies, passing probation, and a couple of other topics as well, which I think you guys will really enjoy and benefit from. And it's all about circulating information and educating Black women and how to navigate the world of work. And there's different parts of the world of work that need to be navigated properly so that we can realize our own success, because I believe that if we understand how to navigate the white construct of the workplace, and of course being strategic, obtaining success is achievable. And that is why I have those masterclasses there. There are so many things in the pipeline for the Toya Talks platform and for Toya Talks in general. And I hope that, they come to fruition, and that God grants me the opportunity to be able to access women further afield all over the world. And although I know that there's women from Australia, Qatar, we've got America, all different countries that access the platform, there are still women that don't know Toya Talks exists and who could really benefit from the platform. So there's still work to be done in cascading that information. Anyway, guys, I'm going to draw this episode to a close. I really, really enjoyed delivering it. As usual, you guys know you can catch me on social media. My Twitter handle is Toya_W. Instagram is Toya_Washington. The Toya Talks Instagram page is Toya_Talks. My Snapchat is Toy Washington, all one word. Each and every Tuesday is a new episode of the Toy Talks podcast. The podcast is available on all podcast platforms. My name is Toy Washington, and you have been listening to the Toy Talks podcast.